Hey guys, it's Eamon. Welcome back to another rapid game on Lee Chess. We're gonna play a d4, playing fast, fat Papa Bland Cats from Canada. Right, d4, d5. All right, looks like a normal Slav here. Okay, main line. We'll go e3, maybe d7. I think I'll just go bishop d3. Yep, this is all theory. Takes, b5, bishop d3. Okay, we'll castle. Queen e2. All right, so this is all main line Slav. And I think I'll go rook d1. Rook d1 lines up with the queen. Today's the off day in the candidates. It's a super exciting day yesterday. We got three players tied up top. Definitely will be watching tomorrow for round 12, or maybe it's round 13. Yeah, I think it's round 13 tomorrow. Two more rounds left. Very exciting. We have Naka, Nepo, and Gukesh tied at the top. Definitely rooting for Gukesh. Pretty excited to have a 17-year-old at the top of the chess world. Okay, queen b6. Steps out of the line of the rook. It's pressure here. I think a4 would be normal, but then he can go c4. Can't really go e4 yet because he just takes here. So if I go a4, c4, bishop b1, is b4 good there? I think that's okay for me. If he goes b4, we'll go knight b1, looking to swing around through d2 and then get to the nice c4 square. That's why I should probably play c4 first. Okay. So he goes b4. This is a really, really typical maneuver in the Slav. Once this b4 is played, then the c4 square is a really nice square for the knight. Looking at the outpost on e5. a5 looks a bit slow. Not really sure what the point of this is because this pawn wasn't weak. None of these pawns were weak, and I would have thought black wants to continue with their development. But I don't see a way I can exploit that right now, except probably just knight d2. As far as my own chess goes, we're still preparing for the Colorado Quick Chess Tournament coming up on April 26th, which is a week from tomorrow. Okay, so he takes his pawn. We're almost certainly going to take with the e-pawn so that we can keep control over these important squares. If we take with the knight, then his knight can jump into these squares, which is not good at all. So we'll accept the isolated pawn. In exchange, I get these two outposts, especially e5, which is looking really, really juicy. Once this knight comes to c4, we'll have great control over the e5 square. Black is already has some problems here. If he goes bishop e7, we'll go knight c4, obviously jumps out. Where's he gonna go? If we go knight c4, queen c7, we could go, we'd like to get a rook to the c file there as fast as possible. All right, well, I'll just play this move quickly. See where the queen goes. C7 certainly looks like the most natural square. Otherwise, I can play bishop f4 for free. Yeah, so here I think I can bishop f4 looks strong. If he castles there, we do have some options. Could think about an immediate knight e5, but I don't see what that accomplishes, so I think I'll just complete my development. Castling would definitely make the most sense. And now what? We could just keep it simple with rook c1. Also see bishop c7 looks interesting to attack this pawn, but then he can just take this knight, and it's a discovery on the bishop. So I think I'll just go rook c1. Just trying to see if there's anything more direct with like knight d6 or bishop d6. Bishop d6, he'll probably take, knight takes, and we're on the bishop, but don't really have an immediate way to win there. So I think we'll just keep it cool. Put a rook in the middle. Okay, knight d5. Now with bishop d6, he can take, and then go knight f4, which is pretty annoying. Forking my queen and bishop, so I don't really want to allow that to happen. So I think I'll just drop back here. Yeah, we'll just preserve the bishop pair. Now knight e5 is looking really like a really nice square for the knight. From there, it would hit f7, so we could potentially have some tactics there. It's still kind of far off. Wow, 8,000 blitz games played by my opponent and 2,000 rapid games, so certainly an experienced opponent here. Notice this h7 square is undefended, so we'll always have to keep in mind tactics that could threaten checkmate on this square, but he always has knight f6 for now. Yeah, I'd say this looks like a really nice version of a Slav, especially with this bishop already out on this diagonal. Oftentimes, this dark square bishop can be a problem piece because it can't get into the game so easily. But here, it's beautiful already. Okay, bishop a6, so this pawn isn't hanging because of this tactic, because bishop takes, and then when we recapture, the knight will be hanging. So what else can we do? Knight e5 comes to mind. So knight e5, he might just take, and if we recapture the knight, he can just take here. That's more simplifications than I'd want. When we have this isolated queen's pawn, this pawn that can't be protected by another pawn, that's why it's isolated. We often This pawn can be weak in the endgame if too many pieces come off, since it can't be protected by another piece. But it does give us these outposts, which allow us to play more actively. But we want to keep pieces on the board. But it's hard to keep pieces on the board right now because he's looking to exchange. How is the position after knight e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes here, and then queen takes d3, maybe rook c8. Hmm. We can hop into c6. Yeah, the c6 square is looking quite vulnerable. Could also go knight c e5. to try to keep another pair of knights on the board, but I guess he could take here anyways, because if I take here, he'll take here with a check, so doesn't really accomplish much. Feels like there's almost a tactic here with threats on h7, but I can't quite make it work. So yeah, I think I'll just go knight e5, just to keep things simple. And we'll still have permanent pressure on, yeah, we'll take back with a knight. This e5 square is my main trumpet in position. And here we can recapture in three ways. But I think I want to take with the queen because I want to keep my rooks connected. And I want to keep this knight on this strong e5 square. So yeah, we'll take with the queen. Now we could be threatening knight c6. But that's not a winning threat. Another plan I can consider here, just to try to improve my position a little bit more, is h4, h5, h6, just to try to create a weakness on the king side. Bishop f6. So he probably does want to take this because these endgames would be not bad for him with his strong outpost on d5. So I don't think we want to allow the trade. I think I'd rather go knight c6, or maybe I should go back to c4. Yeah, the knight looks pretty on c6, but I'm not sure it's doing anything. Mm, Knight on c4, we could come into d6. That actually looks pretty good. So let's say knight c4, maybe rook d8. Yeah, we can go knight c6, then we're looking at b5. We'd also control the d6 square there. So let's go for it. Bit of a positional grind here. Okay, rook c8. So knight d6 definitely looks appealing. Or sorry, knight d6. If we go knight d6 and he trades, that looks pretty good for me. We would get the c file, but I see we would hang d4 there. So that's not good. Hmm. All right, I can't see an immediate way to improve any of my pieces on the queen side, so I think I'm just gonna go h4. Bit of a double-edged move here, but if we can get an h5, this pawn could be threatening to his king side. And if we induce h6, yeah. Now I would like to swing this knight back to the king side, but I can't really move it without dropping the d4 pawn. So how can I fix that? Hmm, Could consider h5 just to fix his pawns on dark squares. Then endgames start to look good for me. Is bishop g5 a problem there? I don't think so. Rook c2 looks like a decent answer. Only thing is this pawn could be weak on h5, but yeah, this pressure on d4 is really annoying. We could think about bishop d6. This is an interesting maneuver. Bishop d6, and if rook d8, can we go bishop c5 there? It does force his rook to a better square, but a5 is weak, so I see we would drop, well, okay, I don't have much time. I'm gonna just go for this move. Don't know if it's good. Idea to go bishop c5, block the c file. Bishop c5, is rook c5 ever a problem? Rook c5 takes knight. Okay, I don't see any good discoveries for the knight there. Except knight c3, yeah, should be fine. So bishop c5 hits the queen, blocks the c file so that my knight can move, and it protects d4. So this looks good. Only thing is this h pawn is hanging. Probably should have just put the pawn on h3 so that it's not hanging in these lines. But no time for regrets. Let's say queen c7. Queen c7 would keep an eye on this pawn and stop my knight from coming into d6, so that looks like a decent option for him. And queen c7, maybe we'll just take the time to play g3 there. That looks decent. Protect this pawn and control the f4 square. Yeah, I think I will do that. Queen c7. Against probably most moves. Just play g3. If rook c5, pawn c5, knight c3, discovery on my queen, I think sacrificing the queen should be good there. Queen takes d8, bishop takes d8, rook takes d8, king h7, and I can go pawn takes knight, and in the end I'll have two rooks and a knight versus a queen. So that looks good. Queen a8. That looks strikes me as a weird move because okay, so yeah, now I think I really want to play g3. Now he maybe actually could take this pawn. If g3, rook takes, pawn takes, knight c3. Mm, yeah, now that's would be well defended. Well, at the very least, I don't think I'm losing any material there, so we'll go for it. I might even have knight b6 there. Yeah, well, so g3 does weaken the light squares around my king, but that's not a huge concern. More important is to protect h4 and the f4 squares so that he never has knight f4. So we should probably calculate rook c5, pawn c5, knight c3, discovery attack, and now I don't have time to take this because it's too well protected. So if I go like queen c2 there, then he trades everything on d1, queen takes d1. We do have this pass pawn on c5, so endgame should never be too bad for me. Could be in a time scramble soon. We're getting low on time. Opponent is tanking. Not quite sure what he's thinking about. Probably trying to calculate rook c5, but I think that should be fine for me. Queen a6, okay. Queen f3 comes to mind, getting out of the pin. F3 could go to E4. All right, we'll just go here. Knight D6 is always an idea, but that square is currently well covered. Okay, drops back. So if we takes, and if bishop takes knight e5, it looks really good. If I take here, he takes on c4, we could take here, takes on c1, should be good for me. So let's take this. Okay, but now knight e5 hit this with tempo. And what is he gonna do? He goes rook f8. We have knight c6. Doesn't appear to win. If we take this, he has to take back with the queen. And then maybe knight c6 would hit. Okay, he goes there. Knight c6. Hit the rook. The knight's a bit. Knight isn't great on that square. What if we take? All right, let's take. Maybe if rook takes, maybe knight d7, looking to come into c5. Or knight g4, hitting the bishop, but that looks like a bit of a one-move threat. I think he will take with the rook because if he takes with the queen, I have knight c6 forking the rook and the pawn. So let's say rook takes, knight e7, bishop e7. Not really getting anywhere there. Though we can always consider d5, but it's not that forceful. So maybe, wow, he takes there, but now don't I have knight c6? If he goes rook d5, we could go rook c1, threatening to give a check here. I think we should do this. Position's getting quite random now, and sharp. So this is a threat. Probably just moves the queen. Maybe queen back to a6. Hmm. This pawn. Pawn is very weak. And he does have it blockaded, which is annoying. Okay, queen c7. What to do? We could go rook c4. Okay, this looks awkward, but oh, can he play bishop d4 here? That's annoying. I think he can get away with bishop d4 because now my rook is hanging. Do we have any tactics there? Yeah, he goes for it. Check, check. Not seeing the tactics. Ooh, this looks really bad now. Could go knight e5. No, he just plays queen takes there. Okay, I think we're just gonna have to go b3. Okay, rook c5. Hmm. Wait, can I just take this? Yeah, now I'm up a piece. Wow, that's lucky. Takes, takes. We're up a piece. Just need to have a bit of technique here. I think I want to go knight b3. Yeah, this looks good. Attack the pawn. Control the back rank. Okay, queen c2. I think I'll just improve my king. He can't really attack my stuff anyway. I guess he could go queen a2, but queen a2 is very out of play. Then we're gonna have some kind of tactics against his back rank. I do want to keep this pawn alive. Pretty important. We have a 5-second increment. Should be plenty of time to win this. If we trade the A pawns, okay. I think, yeah, I think we're just gonna have to trade the A pawns to keep it simple. We'll let him take on A4. Should we go back to B3? Could also go knight C4, C6. Okay, I'm gonna go to C4. And if B3, we can take on E5, I think, with threats against F7. How about knight D6 now? Double attack. Probably has to defend like this. All right, let's give a check. And then give this check. Goes there. All right, let's go back to C4. E5 is very weak now. Let's say B3. Okay, this one takes king here, and the king can stop the D pawn. The knight can stop the B pawn. Should be easily winning. If F5 trying to stop king E4. Okay, this one. I guess we'll trade once. Here, he's gonna try to trade off all the pawns, but I don't think he's gonna be able to. Should we take this? If he goes here, that looks fine. I was thinking just F3 here to stop him invading and trying to take my pawn. Now we have check, and we'll take this, and this pawn isn't dangerous. And that is a good game. Right, that was an interesting one. Got pretty lucky. Whoa, what's happening? My internet is fine. Okay, apparently I have no internet. Not, no. All right, it's back. Let's go to the analysis. All right, let's check it out. Turn off the engine analysis. All right. So main line of the Slav, three knights variation, and yeah, e6 is the semi-Slav. D takes c4 would be the main line of the Slav, but yeah, e6 is the semi-Slav. E3 just protects the pawn, because now in this position, black is threatening to take the pawn. So e3, and fortunately we don't really have any more useful developing moves, so we have to go to, well, you can also play queen c2, I guess, but yeah, bishop b3 is totally mainline semi-Slav. b5, bishop drops back, bishop b7, all normal. That's the main move here. e4 is the main line. How does this go? e4, c5, d5, I suppose. Yeah, I've played this before too. Queen e2, queen e2 here is a bit more flexible, not committing to e4, even though it's possible we'll have to play that anyways, but Yeah, not committing to e4 and d5 is also totally fine. Just accepting the that we are going to have an isolated pawn, but we'll have a lot of play. Okay, a4. Now, often c4 can be a good move here, but c4, yeah, this could be annoying. b4. All right, this is an interesting line. Queen c7, and then I can come out to a4. Yep. b4 should also be fine, but I think, yeah, this a5 move I really did not like because what does it do, you know? This pawn isn't weak. These pawns don't need support. Really, black is just lagging behind in his kingside development and should get on with it. a5, knight d2, and the knight hits c4 with tempo. Should be really nice. Yeah, here I thought he should go queen c7 just to stop this bishop f4 idea. Queen a7 looks a bit too passive. But I didn't manage to really come out of the opening with an advantage. I would say, even though White's position looks really nice with this bishop that works on the open files, Black is super solid. Doesn't really have any weaknesses, so okay, knight e5. Yeah, here, what else was I considering? Could go with this knight. I guess that would result in a similar position. Mm, yeah, it's pretty tough to avoid exchanges with White here. So what I did is probably fine. Takes, lots of exchanges, which of course is bad for the side with the isolated pawn, especially when black can blockade the isolated pawn with a knight. But we do get some squares for our pieces like c6, c4, and we already have a rook on the open file, so white should be slightly better here, but of course black is still very solid. Goes bishop f6, and instead to go knight c4. So was knight c6 good here? Yeah, probably goes just like queen b6. And it's hard to see what the plan is for white. Not much to really attack. So we go knight c4. Yeah, knight c4 at least has the idea of coming into d6 and keeping an eye on a5. Yeah, this h4 move I don't really like just because it does provide luft and could be useful in creating threats, but it's this bishop is going to be tempted to move eventually, like I did in the game, and then the pawn will be hanging. So yeah, so he goes h6, which makes sense. And now I go for this maneuver, maneuvering the bishop around to c5. I'm not sure if this was good, but as long as black doesn't have these tactics, it should be fine. I examined this variation. Takes, knight c3, takes, king here, takes, and yeah. Saw this a takes b move here, defending the knight, and don't think white can be worse here. In fact, white should be better, but I guess this a pawn could be hard to defend. Now we probably just go rook here, and yeah, this should be a winning position for white, I think, because yeah, the rooks and the knights are just gonna be super solid, coordinate to protect my king, and then we'll be able to double rooks on the seventh and go for his pawns. So that should be an easy win. But after bishop c5, queen a8, go g3. Again, he had this move. Takes, knight c3. Here we can't take on a8 because we're on d8 because it's too well defended. But if we go just like queen c2, takes, takes. Yeah, this position is probably still really good for white because of this passed c pawn. And if white doesn't have a way to immediately win it, then it should be good. Although here, this is a double attack on these two pawns, so I guess it could get quite sharp after queen d6 takes and c7. Hmm, I think this should just be winning because this pawn is just too dangerous and the king is safe enough. So yeah, that's he probably saw this line and decided not to go for it. Queen, now the queen comes to a6. Not really sure what the point of this is. Queen steps away. And yeah, this move I really don't like because the knight is such a good blockader on d5. Even if it's not doing anything super active at the moment, it's always so annoying to have your isolated d pawn blockaded because this pawn always wants to advance. And when it steps back, yeah, this just allows a simplification where I would argue that the knight is better than the bishop here. Bishop here, although I did not do the best job of proving it. So what if I go knight c6 here? You can probably just go, I can probably even just do this with the idea of hitting me on the c file. Yeah. Optically, white's position looks so good, but it's hard to prove anything. So I decided to take. Yeah, here I thought he was going to take with the rook. And I was considering knight g4, I think. And if bishop comes back, then we can go d5. Not clear who's better here, but hmm, yeah, really hard to say what's going on here. So he takes with the queen, and now knight c6. Yeah, I missed this rook d5 initially. Really nice move. Again, always blockading this d pawn, not letting me advance, because if he does, well, it is a fork, so I guess this move is quite natural, just to defend both pieces that were forked. And rook c1 is obvious, but queen c7 is nice. Now we don't have any discoveries on the c file because the queen can always take. If only my queen was on e4, then we would have these discoveries, but it's not. Yeah, and now, yeah, black is threatening to take this pawn. So I go rook c4 to defend it. Yeah, but he finds bishop d4. So what else can I do here? Bishop d4 is a nice move. I guess we could go queen e4. And now if he takes, then we have check. And we win the queen. Because queen has to drop back. Yeah, so the queen on e4 does take away the blockading square. But maybe he can even go rook d4 here. Rook d4. We have the same tactic. Does this work? Because if he takes with the queen, then we have the same tactic. But if he takes with the bishop, that's annoying because this endgame, black's just winning here up a pawn. Or at least very good winning chances, I would say. So I guess, yeah, knight c6 doesn't work. Taking this one, we'd also just be down a pawn. So queen e4 is no good. But what can I even do? I guess I could try rook c5. No, again, he can take. Uh, Oh, this is complicated. Yeah, if he takes here, mm, I suppose this is just working because if I take here, it just takes. Oh wait, no, I can take there. I see. Yeah, so here bishop takes doesn't work because of this, and the knight can't be taken because of the back rank check. So can he go rook d4? Now exploiting the pin on the c file. That actually looks quite strong. So maybe black is already better after queen c7. I can't really find a way to defend this pawn. Rook d4, maybe he could go rook d4, and maybe we could take this one. Actually, that looks okay, yeah. Rook is quite awkward, but it's gonna give a check on the back rank, and we should be fine. Okay, so maybe, yeah, maybe rook c5 was the move here. I think so. Because rook c4, the rook is just undefended on the square, so the knight is going to be pinned after, yeah, bishop takes d4. Can't take this because he'll take here. If we take this, then he'll take here. And again, we're just down a pawn. So I play b3 just to get this pawn off of the hanging square and protect the rook. Now, this is a threat. And he goes rook c5. But yeah, it's just a strange blunder. If he just goes bishop e7 here, I think he should be totally fine. He'd be up a pawn, or sorry, bishop f6. Very solid position, up a pawn. Don't see any tactics. Yeah. So luckily he went rook here, but just completely forgetting about the hanging bishop. Of course, he was thinking that if I take this, he'll take here and be up a pawn again, but just forgot about this order of doing things. And yeah, this should just be a winning endgame. Originally during the game, I was saying I didn't want to trade the allow the trade of the a pawns, but since the once the a pawns come off, the b pawn is so easily blockaded. I don't think it's a big deal. And from here, we're just mopping up. King on g2, very nice. Just stepping off the back rank so he doesn't have any checks. He goes e5, and yeah, now we just decide to go for the trade of the a pawns because like I said, the b pawn is so easily blockaded. Knight b3 would have been totally fine. But knight c4 is just a bit more active attacking the pawn. And if he goes b3, I think we can just take this. And surely there's a win here. Well, at the very least, we can stop him queening, and then mm, yeah, well, I'm sure there must be a win here because not sure exactly what it is. Maybe like knight g4. Then he can take it. Okay. Perhaps that's a bit sloppy, but and this line isn't even forced, so at the worst case scenario, we could always drop back to b2. So knight c4, he goes queen b5, protecting the pawn. But now knight b6 is a double attack. Queen comes here. We give a few checks and go back to c4. I think I should have just taken this, right? Yeah. That was definitely the way to play. And then the knight can swing around e4 to f6. Yeah. But knight c4, of course, doesn't spoil anything. Queen d4, just a bit desperate, but easy to see that the pawns are too easily blockaded there. What else could he try here? It's hard to say. I mean, if you try to protect this pawn, this was probably his best bet. Maybe then we just go h5, break things open. Yeah. Right. So yeah, queen d4, and not much to say about this. I think the king just comes over. All we have to see here is that in this endgame, just have to make sure that the pawns aren't going anywhere. And with the knight back on b2, we'll actually, or d2, will actually control both of these pawns. We don't even need the king. Since the king is so close, we might as well bring it over. If you tried f5 here, I think I could just go here. The idea of attacking the pawn, or king e2. The idea of attacking it like this way. Yeah, not much else to say. All right, last but not least, let's take a look with the engine. All right, mainland Semi-Slav, A4. Interesting that the computer actually wants to take this, which is kind of weird. And yeah, here it clearly prefers c4, right? This is the move I would have been more worried about, just gaining more space on the queen side. But b4 leaves a nice hole for my knight on... Wow, it even likes knight takes. This just looks so anti-positional to me. Like knight c4 and then knight d4. Perhaps there's some concrete reasons why the knights could be really strong, perhaps on like c4 and b5. But to me, you just like normally you just want to keep the pawn, except the isolated queen's pawn, just so we can keep control over these central dark squares. Knight c4, yeah, queen c7 looks more natural to me. Although the engine says queen d8, who knows why. A7, normal developing. Like h5 here, or sorry, h4. Yeah, so the engine, interesting, it likes h4. So I didn't really see a way to improve my position without trading a few pieces, but the engine finds this move, and on knight b6, then it wants to go knight e5. Okay, well, I guess this could turn out similar to the game. Knight e, yeah, knight e5, trades. Okay, equal position. So it does like knight c6. Hmm. Knight c6, it says queen a6, eh? Hard to see why this would be, this rook c5 idea. Did not see this one. Okay, this is pretty instructive so in the semi-Slav, this a4, a5, b4 structure becomes fixed and it can be weak, so you can target it with these pieces. Interesting. Have to keep that one in mind. But anyways, I didn't see that, so I went knight c4, h4, giving my king left, 6. Yeah, here's where I went for this maneuver. Putting the bishop on c5. Doesn't look bad at all, but okay, the computer basically says all these positions are still equal. Queen f3 was apparently a mistake because of, did not even consider bishop d4 here. Yeah, so we have an alignment issue on the c files, so yeah, after bishop takes d4, if bishop takes, then he has rook takes here. That would have been a cold shower. I suppose bishop takes, rook takes, yeah, it just takes this one. All right. So I should have thought about this alignment problem on the C file, but it just looks too solid with the pawn like this, with the pawn protecting the bishop. It feels like a very solid construction, but actually I blundered a tactic. Okay, it's good to know. So what should I do instead here? It already wants to go knight e5. I guess this makes some sense, yeah. Because if the queens are traded, then then White's play actually makes a lot of sense because we keep the dark square bishops, so this pawn is going to be weak. And even though I guess black can try to start up some counterplay, this c5 square, and in conjunction with the bishop and even the rook, You're just going to target the a5 pawn and that should fall. Anyways, queen a6. So I blunder queen f3, allowing this, but he didn't spot it. He and instead allows me to go for this simplification, which I thought favored me. Hmm. But I'd rather just go b3 and keep the c4 outpost. That makes a lot of sense. Bishop f6, trade, c6, yeah, rook here, rook c1, all normal. Queen c7, normal. Yeah, and here rook c4 is a blunder. Okay. So the best move was queen e3. Interesting. Protecting the rook and the queen protects the rook and the pawn. Kind of hard to see. Normally you'd shy away from putting the queen on the dark square, but here, I guess just assuming a more passive defensive role is important for the queen. Important to keep the rook on the c file protected. Okay, rook d6. Yep, we found queen f4. Knight b8. Wait, sorry, this isn't the game. Uh, rook. What was this line? Rook c4. Okay, I guess this is what my opponent was looking at. So queen e3. Uh, queen e3, rook d6, queen f4. Apparently the game's equal. All right, that could have been interesting. Yeah, so I blunder, obviously. Go b3 just to try to keep it alive, and then he blunders in return. So if he had just gone bishop c5 is apparently the best move. Yeah, that would have been really annoying. Wow, it's even, wow, the knight's trapped, eh? Because if we do this, wait, can he just take here? Suppose we get one pawn back. Wait, no, we don't even get one pawn. Ah, we get the bishop back. Okay, I see. But even this should be a winning endgame. F5, when we take here. Yeah, this b3 pawn is just so weak. Black's up a pawn on the king side, and my structure is so bad over here that either queen c3 or queen c2, just going after this b pawn is going to be really tough for me to defend. All right, so takes b3. Yeah, bishop c5 would have just trapped my knight. Would have been really bad. Right. But yeah, fortunately he just blunders with rook c5, and from here we're just cleaning up. All right, pretty fortunate there that my opponent made this slip. Yeah. All right, so not a great game for me, but I was able to create enough complications that my opponent eventually blundered. Still overall pretty lucky. Let's see. 5 inaccuracies, 2 blunders. All right, not too bad. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something about the Semi-Slav in this one, and see you in the next one.